Tonight, chilling new details about the FSU suspect. One day after the alleged gunman opened fire on campus, killing two. We speak with classmates who say he expressed white supremacist views, what we're learning about his past. Plus, we speak with a survivor, a grad student still hospitalized tonight who says playing dead likely saved her life.
I heard him reload, so I knew I needed to stay dead.
The surprise meeting in El Salvador, the Maryland senator sitting down with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the man at the center of the president's deportation battle. The fallout tonight as the Trump administration prepares more deportation flights. The dangerous spring storms impacting millions. Violent hail, flooding, and at least one tornado, and the worst could still be ahead. Our Richard Engel inside Iran as new nuclear talks are set to kick off between the U.S. and Iran. Rebuilding Los Angeles months after the devastating wildfires, what communities there are facing and learning from others hit hard by fires. Are we really alone? The stunning discovery and the new clues scientists say could hint at life on a distant planet. Caught on camera vandalizing Teslas, one man's destructive streak targeting the cars. And there is good news tonight. We'll take you to the star-studded Los Angeles party that will have you looking up.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening and welcome. A wounded victim of yesterday's mass shooting at Florida State University is offering a chilling account of how she survived the deadly attack, hearing the gunman reload behind her amid the chaos and the critical choice she made to play dead. Today inside the Student Union, the belongings of students and staff who fled the shots and the carnage left where they were. The shock turning to mourning on the FSU campus today where memorials for the two people who died are forming. 6 other apparently random victims were injured in the shooting. Witnesses today describing the sounds of gunfire and the cries of people as they desperately ran for cover. Also today, we have learned more about the 20-year-old suspected shooter recovering from his own wounds tonight, the stepson of a sheriff's deputy. Phoenix Eichner, according to 2 former classmates, had been known to hold white supremacist views, though a specific motive for the attack remains unclear. Authorities tonight saying Eichner could be charged with first-degree murder. Priya Schrader has late new details for us.
Tonight, one day after an active shooting rampage rocked the campus of Florida State University, new details about the suspect's movements. The carnage began between 11:56 and 11:57 a.m. when police say Phoenix Eichner fired the first shot. Authorities say he walked in and out of buildings and green spaces, firing a handgun. At noon, police say the suspect was shot by responding officers and taken into custody.
The suspect continues to receive treatment at one of our local hospitals. He will face the charges up to and including first-degree murder.
2 people died, including Tiru Chaba, a husband and father, and Robert Morales. His brother writing, quote, he loved his job at FSU and his beautiful wife and daughter. 6 other people were injured. Grad student Madison Askins was hit by a bullet that still lodged in her back.
I heard the shooter come up next to me, and I heard him reload. So I knew I needed to stay dead, so I stayed slumped over. I remember him saying, yeah, keep running.
Do you believe that basically playing dead is what saved your life?
100%. When he stood over me, when he changed his clip, I know that if I had gotten up in that moment, he would have shot me a second time.
FSU officials say Eichner was a student there and had recently transferred from nearby Tallahassee State College.
At this point, there does not appear to be any connection at all between the shooter and any of the victims.
2 classmates who spent time with the alleged gunman say he had expressed white supremacist views in the past. NBC News has not been able to independently verify his views.
He definitely had that opinion of just not respecting anybody who wasn't a straight white man.
Big hatred towards women and minorities, and there's a lot of rhetoric around how everyone that's not white needs to get out.
Revealing court documents shed light on a potentially tumultuous childhood. The FBI says the suspect was once known as Christian Gunnar Erickson, but changed his name to Phoenix Eichner in 2020. A court approving the name change found him to, quote, be a mentally, emotionally, and physically mature young adult. But separate court documents from 2015 related to a custody dispute between Eichner's biological parents say, according to his father, he had, quote, developmental delays and special needs and was being treated for several health and mental issues. A handgun police say was owned by the suspect's stepmom, a sheriff's deputy, was found on the scene. At FSU today, students returned to the student union for the first time. Sophomore Vaughn Serkis was working inside when he saw students running.
It's a tough experience being right back here right now. Just because of the fact that literally 20 feet away from us, there was somebody shot on the ground. I think about, when does it stop?
And Priya, I think about that young woman's account, how gripping that was. Can you tell me where the suspect is tonight, what his status is?
Yeah, Lester, so Tallahassee police say the suspect did sustain significant injuries and will need more time in the hospital before he's transferred to a detention facility. No word just yet on exactly when charges could be filed against him. Lester?
Priya Schrader, thank you. Tonight, there's growing fallout over that meeting in El Salvador between a U.S. Senator and Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who was deported there last month. Here's Gabe Gutierrez.
Tonight, this picture is igniting a political firestorm. Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen is now back in the U.S. after that surprise half-hour meeting at a hotel with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the migrant the Trump administration initially said was mistakenly deported last month to a notorious prison in El Salvador.
This case is not just about one man. It's about protecting the constitutional rights of everybody who resides in the United States of America.
But El Salvador's president is mocking the meeting, writing sarcastically that Abrego Garcia has miraculously risen from the death camps and torture, now sipping margaritas with a Democratic lawmaker. Van Hollen says those drinks were planted by Salvadorian government officials and that Abrego Garcia was moved out of the prison to another facility days ago.
He's experienced trauma. He said he's sad every day.
Despite a Supreme Court order to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return to the U.S., it's an immigration fight the White House is relishing, stressing today that Abrego Garcia is not coming back. President Trump calling Van Hollen a grandstander.
He's a fake. That prisoner's record is unbelievably bad.
Even though he has no criminal convictions, the White House, citing local police reports, says Abrego Garcia was a member of the violent MS-13 gang, which his family denies. Today, the Department of Homeland Security released new details about a traffic stop involving Abrego Garcia in 2022. The report says he was pulled over for speeding while driving 8 people from Texas to Maryland for construction work. According to the report, the responding officer suspected it was human trafficking because there was no luggage in the vehicle. Police let him go with a warning for driving with an expired license. His wife says he sometimes transported groups of workers between job sites.
This man is according to certified statements that we get, is a very violent person.
Meanwhile, civil rights attorneys say the Trump administration is loading alleged gang members onto buses at this ICE facility in Texas, preparing to deport them under the Alien Enemies Act, which dates back to 1798.
We're discussing it. It's a tool in the toolbox. It's a useful tool.
Their deportation would be the first since the Supreme Court ruled earlier this month that the administration must provide notice to migrants it's trying to remove under the obscure wartime law and give them the chance to challenge their deportations in court.
I don't know about the group you're talking about, but if they're bad people, I would certainly authorize it.
We've also learned about a change at the IRS. Earlier this week, the Trump administration replaced the acting IRS commissioner at the height of tax season. Now, the new acting commissioner is out. A source familiar with the discussions tells NBC News he'd been handpicked by Elon Musk. Lester?
All right, Gabe Gutierrez, thanks. Tonight, 25 million are in the path of wicked weather with storms stretching from Texas to Michigan, with more storms ahead this weekend. Meteorologist Amelia Draper is tracking it all. Amelia, good evening.
Good evening, Lester. Not only are we tracking strong storms tonight, but wintry weather across the central Rockies as well. Now, for tomorrow on Saturday, severe storms will continue across the plains as there's an increased risk for flooding from Dallas to St. Louis. Then we head on into Easter Sunday. This day, an area of low pressure is going to move into the central plains with storms capable of producing not only tornadoes, but large hail and strong winds as well. The biggest concern, though, will be flooding and flash flooding with locally 6 inches of rain possible from Texas to Illinois.
Amelia Draper, thanks. This weekend, there will be high-stakes nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran in Rome. Ahead of it, Richard Engel reports on The View inside Tehran.
Iran today showed it's still ready for a fight, parading weapons through Tehran for annual Army Day celebrations. But the talk in Iran is all about diplomacy, a possible deal, maybe soon, with President Trump that Iranians hope will end sanctions and avoid a war. The negotiations focus on Iran's nuclear program. Iran says it's strictly peaceful, but it enriches uranium beyond a level needed for civilian use. President Trump today said his red line is clear.
I'm for stopping Iran, very simply, from having a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon. I want Iran to be great and prosperous and terrific.
We were given rare access to Friday prayers at the main mosque at Tehran University.
The mood in Iran is clearly in favor of diplomacy. And what's happening in this mosque is actually quite extraordinary. Many of the people here are soldiers, people who'd be generally considered hardline. But the preacher, at this very moment, is speaking positively about a potential deal with the United States.
The preacher said Iranians shouldn't trust the United States, nor consider it a friend, but added that negotiations are vital and appropriate. For Iran, that's something of an olive branch. Outside the mosque, we met Atifa Asefi, an architect.
Do you think these talks are going to work?
I feel it's good. I'm optimistic, she said.
No one we spoke to here seems remotely interested in a war with the U.S. Their eyes are on a deal. Negotiations resume in Rome tomorrow. Lester?
Richard Engel, thank you. Now to the case of Brian Kohberger, the man accused of murdering those 4 college students in Idaho. Stephanie Gosk is here, and I understand there were some major rulings today.
Yeah, there were a number of court orders handed down today, including 2 evidentiary rulings on parts of this case that could end up being significant, Lester. The judge says one of the 2 surviving roommates will be allowed to testify that she saw a masked man with, quote, bushy eyebrows in the house around the time her 4 roommates were murdered. The defense tried to argue she shouldn't be allowed to include that detail. The judge also ruled that the defense will not be able to bring up Brian Kohberger's autism diagnosis during the trial unless he actually takes the stand. As for the trial, Lester, it's set for August 11th. Kohberger has entered a plea of not guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder. The prosecution is seeking the death penalty.
All right, Stephanie, thanks for that update. Now to Los Angeles, where months after those fires devastated whole communities, residents are trying to rebuild. Many are worried they'll be priced out, however. Here's Liz Kreitz.
In fire-ravaged Los Angeles, a hopeful sound. Construction now underway on the first homes beginning to rebuild in the Pacific Palisades.
We'll call it a quarter.
And in Altadena, Robert Lund is among the first with a completely cleared out lot.
Looking at your plans here, would you say you're ahead of the curve?
Oh, yeah. One more up.
That's because Lund is also a general contractor. In addition to rebuilding his own home, he's fielding calls from neighbors turned clients.
I just keep mentioning to everybody, basically you should be in conversation with an architect. You should have been in conversation yesterday.
That urgency comes from simple supply and demand.
There's going to be a tidal wave of demand for laborers, carpenters, everything you could possibly imagine. And I don't know what that's going to look like.
But there are places to look, too, like Santa Rosa, where the deadly 2017 Tubbs fire destroyed thousands of homes.
Much like Altadena, the fire leveled this neighborhood of Coffey Park. But today, it is almost entirely rebuilt. And residents here tell us that what they did here offers a blueprint and lessons to the thousands just beginning the rebuilding process in L.A.
Come on in. Trisha Woods says she was hiring a contractor within hours of losing her home.
For those who didn't jump on the rebuilding process as quickly as you did,
What did you hear from them? What happened?
The cost of building went up. I built my home for $306 a square foot. People that were buying contractor-built homes were paying $500 by the end, $700 by the very end.
Still, the neighborhood is seen as a success story. 3 years after the fire, 80% of Coffey Park had been rebuilt. Santa Rosa officials say they doubled their permitting staff, reducing processing times, and also created a system of block captains, residents like Woods, who helped streamline communications with the city.
If you want a fast recovery, pool your resources, work together.
But the scale of destruction in LA is several times greater. More than 37,000 insurance claims have been filed so far. By one estimate, at least 2/3 of homeowners are underinsured, which could leave many to cover the difference, reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, and tariffs now threatening to drive those costs even higher. Meanwhile, in Altadena, the first rebuilding permit issued just days ago.
4 foot, 11
But many
and a
like
half.
Lund still waiting.
It will be a great feeling to just return to this spot, and hopefully it will be some kind of beacon to let people know that it's possible.
Liz Kreutz, NBC News.
In 60 seconds, the possible signs of life out there. If you've ever wondered if we're alone, we'll tell you about what scientists are saying could be the best evidence of life in outer space. We are back with the new evidence that life could exist beyond our own planet after a team of scientists say they may have made one of the biggest discoveries in human history. Here's Tom Costello.
In a distant corner of our own galaxy, a planet that could have an atmosphere with molecules that on Earth only come from life. The planet is identified as K2-18b, 2.5 times the size of Earth, and molecules which on Earth are associated with phytoplankton, basic microscopic life.
It is very important, but we also have to be extremely cautious.
Cautious because planet K2-18b is 124 light years away, 729 trillion miles. A modern NASA rocket would take 4.5 million years to get there.
To seek out new life and new civilizations.
We humans have been captivated by the possibility of life beyond Earth forever. K2-18b could have an ocean teeming with life in a sort of Goldilocks environment.
We're looking for those special planets that are not too hot, not too cold, but just right for life. And that's what this planet might be.
MIT planetary science professor Sarah Seeger says the possibility of primitive life is very real.
I want you to think of more like the mold in your fridge or the smells coming off trees. You know, it could just be very simple life eking out an existence that's more common out there.
Scientists have already discovered other Goldilocks planets and moons, and life could exist in forms and in chemical signatures we can't even imagine. Lester?
All right, Tom, thanks. Up next, new video of a man accused of vandalizing several Teslas. Plus, the emotional moment at Notre Dame Cathedral, welcoming visitors for the first Holy Week since that devastating fire. We're back with the growing measles crisis. More than 800 infections have been confirmed, including 36 new cases this week alone in Texas. The virus has now spread to 25 states plus D.C. This year, 2 children in Texas and an adult in New Mexico have died, all of them unvaccinated. Police in Minneapolis arrested a man they say damaged at least 6 Tesla vehicles, causing more than $20,000 in damage. Video shows the suspect keying the vehicles while walking his dog. Meanwhile, federal arson charges were announced after a man threw a Molotov cocktail at a Tesla facility in Kansas City. And 4 months after its long-awaited reopening, Notre Dame Cathedral marked Good Friday with an emotional outpouring of worshipers who gathered to pray 6 years after a devastating fire nearly destroyed the iconic Paris landmark. The line to enter stretched across the Seine. Notre Dame's rector said this week's crowds exceeded all expectations. Up next, the good news, not about the other stars in L.A. We'll take you to the party that's inspiring all Earthlings. Next. Finally, there's good news about a star-studded L.A. party that has everyone looking up. Camila Bernal reports.
Home
Home to the biggest stars in the world, this monthly get-together in Los Angeles,
each one of those stars is forming its own little solar system like ours,
proves the city's rich and famous have nothing on the universe.
Impressive. It's magnificent, frankly.
Oh, wow. It started with just a few telescopes.
Let me readjust it for you. How you doing?
And when Bobby Cabbage-Stock spotted the guys and gals from the LA Astronomical Society,
it's just really beautiful.
He was hooked and started inviting lots of people.
What's it like to see strangers looking through your telescope and other telescopes?
Everyone has the same reaction. They're disarmed. It allows them to kind of slow down and change the perspective of the world around them and the universe around them as well.
Between the headlights and the streetlights, you might think this is the worst place to see the stars.
This telescope is connected to a camera.
But there's something about the cosmos.
This is like the scene in the Planet of the Apes when he looks through the telescope for the first time.
That brings you down to Earth.
Oh, wow.
I can see Saturn. I can see Orion's Nebula. In my neighborhood, in a busy, dense, light-polluted area, there's always something in the sky to look at.
I saw Jupiter, and then I saw like it's a cloud, and then the cloud is making stars.
Now the gathering has blossomed into a hip
Thank you.
evening hangout.
This is such a party.
But all it really takes is someone willing to look up. Camila Bernal, NBC News, in the City of Stars.
Camila, thanks for that. That's Nightly News for this Friday. Thank you for watching. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night. Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.